The joke. Gracias. Uno, dos, 1, 2, uno, dos. Would you like us to do this one in Spanish? Anyone? Hands in the air, hands in the air. Oh yeah, whoa. Klaus? Yeah, it doesn't mind. German, Julia, Klaus. Good stuff. Look, do I need to do an intro here? If you don't know or haven't heard of PORC, well, you're in the right place. You're going to learn a lot today about, well, read the title, right? We don't have to go there. But we're going to have some time for questions at the end to keep it interactive, right, PORC? So, PORC, Sheridan, over to you. Enjoy. Thanks.
Thank you, Dave. So, last presentation of the day. I'm going to try and bring a little bit of energy to the proceedings. So I want to talk to you today about voicing the unvoiced. And I'll explain to you as we go through what I mean by voicing the unvoiced. But I'd like to suggest that AI dubbing presents new opportunities to language service providers. Now, if you know me, I'm not an all singing, all dancing AI cheerleader. It's not about AI, everything for everybody. Even though, if you look at the program, you might think that that is the case. So last year in Dublin, I presented on strategies for growth in general for language service providers. So I would say adoption of AI and looking for new opportunities using AI should be strategic. It should be done aligned with the strategy of your company. And the second link here is there was a recent article on Slater, which also used one of the Slater surveys that they run quite frequently. And this talked about whether or not language service providers should rethink their offerings. And there was some interesting data in that article from one of their surveys. And in fact, not as many companies as you think are actually using AI, which is really not all that surprising because there's so much going on and it's so hard to keep up. But I do want to talk about one area where I think the AI is fairly well developed, and I do believe that it presents particular opportunities, new opportunities for LSPs. So let's talk about video as a medium of communication, as a form of content. Video content is pervasive and continually growing. So in 2023, 82.5% of all web traffic was video content. And already back in 2021, Slater was predicting or estimating that the market for localization of video was already worth $5 billion. And that will only continue to grow. So video is hugely pervasive as a form of content. And that's not surprising because consumers prefer video content. So 72% of consumers like or prefer to learn about a product or a topic by watching videos rather than reading text. It's their preferred modality of consuming content. And interestingly, 95% of consumers, this has been shown, retain information and remember information better when they've consumed it from video compared to reading it in a text. So it's no wonder they prefer that modality of content. They also remember that content and what they've learned or what they've seen better when they've seen it in video. And of course, I don't need to tell this audience that naturally the content that consumers prefer needs to be in their own language. This is the business of localization that we're all in. So the statistics are already well known that 75% of consumers won't engage with content that is not in their language, and 90% of consumers won't buy a product or service if they can't learn about that product or service or consume the content about that product or service in their own native language. So that's just some context that video is pervasive and continuously growing and is a preferred modality of consumption of information by consumers. When we talk about video localization, I'm going to just quickly run through some definitions. You don't need to read through all of these, but this is just to run through a couple of definitions so people know what I'm talking about in terms of video localization. I've broken this into two halves. So this slide talks about the approaches that retain the original source audio. So if you're dubbing of your localizing an English video into French, these approaches, you will still hear the original English audio. The first is subtitles, where you see a textual translation of the audio track on the bottom of the screen. And then captions are subtitles that also add some text describing what's going on in the scene if a phone is ringing or some music is playing. So that's a textual representation of the translation of the audio track. And then you have voice-over translation, or VO dubbing, which gives you an audio translation of the source content, but overlays that on top of the existing source audio. So you can hear the original English, but then you hear the French translation audio overlaid on top. So both of those approaches, you hear the original audio track. And then you have approaches that replace the original audio track with the new target language content. We start with dubbing, which is generally known as dubbing, but if you work in the film industry, it's called revoicing. And that's where you take the original audio from the original video content. Say if it was in English, you translate that script into French, for example, and then replace the original English audio track with the French audio track. And so that is dubbing or revoicing content. There is a step further than that, where sometimes it can be disconcerting. If you're watching an original video that was in English and now you're watching it in French and German, and the lips don't quite match what is happening in the target language audio. So that is when you then get into lip syncing. Traditionally, that was a case of very precisely trying to match the translation on the target audio with what the person was originally saying. More recently, with AI and digital video, you can actually modify the video directly using AI techniques to modify the lip movement to match the target language that looks, in most cases, quite natural. So I'll talk a little bit more about those, but I wanted to get those definitions just so that everybody knows what I'm talking about. And traditionally, dubbing was done using professional voice actors in professional recording studios. So you typically had multiple roles involved. You had a voice actor, and I know I've actually met some people here who are voice actors, so it's part of the language industry. You had a director for the studio, and you had a sound engineer to monitor the quality of the audio. So obviously, with a professional voice actor, a director, sound engineer, and so on in a professional studio, there's a time and financial consideration to be considered in creating dubbing of video content into various languages, to time and cost factors of that, which is why, professional dubbing of audio was more or less targeted at fairly high quality, high value content, where the time and cost investment to generate high quality dubbing was going to be worthwhile, and you would get a return on your investment. And in some markets, there's a relatively limited supply of professional voice actors, so there was a certain limit in terms of capacity to create professional dubbing of video content. So how that has changed, obviously, is with the whole advent of new technologies for both audio and video. So you've got generative AI and text-to-speech technology, text-to-video generative AI, voice cloning, and now, as I've mentioned, lip syncing. I've asked Renato's permission. This is a post that he made on LinkedIn. I'm going to give over 1 minute of my time to Renato just so he can...
I am a big fan of HeyGen. I have been using it as a party trick at international conferences and in LinkedIn posts, where I use my avatar to deliver realistic videos that are perfectly lip-synced. All the fancy tech, with lifelike avatars and programs that create voices and backgrounds, comes together to create something truly impressive when combined with Gen AI and MT. Instead of looking at this as a threat, LSPs need to incorporate these solutions to their offerings, especially for those localizing e-learning and training content. This is an opportunity to extend your offering by learning how to take advantage of this technology. And companies like VoiceSeed and Verbalate.ai need to up their game and find ways to be embedded in localization platforms. Eventually, this technology is just going to be another feature in the arsenal of comprehensive content platforms.
So what's interesting is that, Renato never recorded that particular video. All he did was write a LinkedIn post. And you might have missed it at the beginning that once he had written the LinkedIn post, he was able to use HeyGen to generate that video with his cloned voice with the script that he wrote for LinkedIn. So, as he said at the beginning, it's something of a party trick that he uses, which is it captures people's attention. You know, people commented on the LinkedIn post that clearly the hand movement and head movement isn't quite in sync, because if you realize what's happening there, he had recorded previously some other video talking about something else where he had those movements, and how he just reuses that video clip with different scripts that he writes, and it is then vocalized or spoken by HeyGen together with the lip synchronization. But he has cloned his own voice, he has loaded it into HeyGen, and now he can create multiple LinkedIn posts that are spoken as a video like that just by writing the script. So, if we look at all of that technology for AI dubbing, lip syncing, voice cloning, text-to-speech, you know, my assertion is that there is a new opportunity for AI dubbing that can be leveraged by LSPs. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this slide just to explain what's going on here, because the question is, where is the opportunity for LSPs? So the graph on your left, my right, is the traditional innovator's dilemma, which you may be familiar with from Clayton Christensen's book, The Innovator's Dilemma. So what's going on here is at the very top dotted line is the most demanding customers. So that's Hollywood, that's Netflix. They continue to dub video content using professional actors in professional studios. That's not going to change anytime soon for that use case of the most demanding customers. What's happening at the bottom dotted line are the least demanding customers. That's YouTube. If you go on YouTube, you would not believe the amount of AI-generated content, both video and synthetic voice, and how easy it is to just generate a piece of video content using AI, using synthetic voices, and put it up there on YouTube for almost free, and possibly make some money if enough people watch it, if you've got a catchy enough hook to bring people into watching your YouTube video. So the folks in the least demanding customer category are the ones adopting the HeyGen technologies, the latest generative AI, the voice cloning, and so on. The ones at the very top are going to be the last ones to adopt the AI because of the very high-level demands they have for quality and professionalism. And my question is, where is the sweet spot in the middle for language service providers to provide professional quality, translated and dubbed content using the latest AI tools that are not at the bottom level of YouTube and not at the top level of Netflix and Hollywood, but they're in between? And my assertion is that there's a lot of corporate content, and you guys are used to working with those clients on corporate content that is now in video form, that is not currently being localized or dubbed because of the cost and time involved in studio localization, but is accessible to the market using AI tools together with human-in-the-loop, professional linguists, professional review, can reach the level of quality that is acceptable for corporate use cases, and that's where the opportunity is for LSPs to move into this service. What's interesting for me, my background, 15 to 20 years ago, I was looking at exactly this chart for machine translation. So way back in 2013, when I co-founded Iconic Translation Machines, we were looking at Google Translate on the bottom, and everybody was using Google Translate for lots of things. People at the very top, most demanding customers, were saying, we're not going to use machine translation. We need professional linguistic translation. And our question was, where is the sweet spot in the middle for machine translation for enterprise customers 15 to 20 years ago? So what I'm seeing today, if I go back to that assertion that corporate content is ripe for AI dubbing tools with linguistic review and linguistic quality as offered by LSPs, what we're seeing is that video content for advertising and marketing is pervasive. There's a whole bunch of people trying to very quickly, with rapid turnaround times and very cheaply, create 30-second TikTok videos on a regular schedule to get out there on TikTok, or up to 10-minute videos to get out on YouTube. E-learning and training is a large use case. We just spent last week in London at the e-learning technology exhibit where we saw that AI dubbing and synthetic voices are already being well adopted in the e-learning space. And then videos for product information, customer education, product demonstrations, again, are being adopted for voicing with synthetic voices at high level of quality and dubbed into multiple languages using synthetic voices. So there are good examples of video content which is becoming, as I said, more and more pervasive that are being dubbed using AI tools in the corporate world. What do the tools look like and how do you use them? So I'm not going to go into details here. As it happens, the Voiceed booth is literally just outside the door of this room. So on your way out, or over the next day or two, you can see the demos of Revoiceit, the Voiceed tool in operation, and listen to the voices. But what we've developed at Voiceed, and that's just one of the tools, there are others on the market, is a platform that allows you to manage the process of AI dubbing using synthetic voices. So a workspace that allows you to manage projects, manage individual users and roles, including linguistic roles for audio review, voice casting so that you can select voices for your content in different languages, asset management because you've got to manage the source and target videos, the audio tracks, transcriptions, translations, and so on, and then review and quality control of the synthetic audio and post-editing, what I'll call that. I'm going to get to that topic, what I'm calling post-editing of audio voices, and then finally synchronizing the audio track back with the video. But as I said, I'm not going to go through a lot of details of the product. You can see it outside. What I do want to talk about is the use of the technology and the skills that are required to work through that. So it was interesting, the keynote this morning, looking at not jobs per se, but skills and tasks, and how skills and tasks evolve over time with the evolution of technology. And so one of the things that we're really interested in, and it's something I'm very open to having a conversation with people here at the conference about, is the skills and tasks involved in using AI tools for synthetic voices in dubbing video content. Some of them are much the same as they've always been, with a little bit of tweaking, and some of them are quite new, and we're still trying to figure out exactly, what is the sweet spot for who and how long does it take to work through review of synthetic voices. So I'll go through each of these in turn. I have to say, Dave, I forgot to start my clock, so I have no idea where I am time-wise, but you'll keep me posted. So there are three areas that I've identified as key areas, roles, or skills to use in the overall AI dubbing process. So the first is project management or asset management. And very much this is similar to an existing PM role in a localization project. Majorly, the major difference is the types of assets and the quantity of assets that are being tracked. So it's similar in terms of project management, but you're looking at keeping track of source video that you started from, breaking out then from the source video the audio track that you want to localize, and separating out the background music, if there's background music, or other audio effects that might be in the video, and managing those. You want to download, obviously, the source transcript from the video, the audio track, so that you can then translate that source transcript into your target languages. And then you want to do your script translations, typically in a different tool where you've got your TMs and your terminology management and all of that. And then you want to work in generating the target audio using the synthetic voices, go through review and adjustment and post-editing, let's say, of that synthetic audio before finally bringing everything back together, your target audio back with the background music and whatever other sound effects, synchronized with the video, final mix for quality of audio, and then delivery to the customer. Typically, by the way, if you do get involved in adapting the script, say for timing in different languages that might have longer or shorter translations than the source, or adjustments for pronunciation and so on, you end up with what's called an as-recorded script, which is the final script for what was actually spoken in the audio track that you delivered. But that's a relatively straightforward project management role. where that would already exist in most LSPs, just some new types of content if you didn't already do video localization. So the interesting role from my perspective is what I'm calling audio post-editing. That is not a term that is in widespread use. There was an unconference here yesterday for the SIG group that looks at audio video translation. The other new term that I learned yesterday was the idea of proof listening, which is the equivalent of proofreading text, and proof listening to do the quality review of synthetic audio in terms of video localization. But to my mind, and having spent a long time working in MT, going way back to when MT was new and being early adopted, I remember all of the large debates about what did it mean to post-edit MT and light post-editing and heavy post-editing, and did you need a bilingual translator, or some people suggested a monolingual linguist might be okay to post-edit. And that all took time to sort of sort itself out as MT became more and more adopted over time. Where we are today is trying to figure out, okay, the audio post-editing where somebody listens to the synthetic audio that's generated by these platforms, and then works through several options, like I'm not sure the prosody or the intonation of that line was quite right, I'm going to generate another take, which is just like you would do in a studio with an actor say, that didn't come across quite right, please do another take. You can do that with the synthetic audio. Some tools like ours have very fine-grained pronunciation control. So we see that with corporate videos where there's a brand name or a product name or a technical term that is there that you need to be pronounced in a specific way in each of the languages, target languages that you're dubbing into. So going in and having that control over pronunciation, retaking lines, as I said, looking at the pacing. So at the end of the day, you're trying to arrive at a target language audio that synchronizes with the video, either the action in the video or the lip movements in the video if you're not using digital lip syncing, and then eventually approving the audio lines, which may then go on to a second step of audio review or proof listening, as I heard that term yesterday. But these are some of the new things that come in to the world of AI dubbing using these kinds of tools where you're not going to a studio. So I have 7, that's perfect. And then finally, again, this is a traditional role that may not exist in your LSP if you haven't traditionally done video localization or audio localization, but you end up with a target language audio track, and you've got to remix it back together with the background music and the audio effects and synchronize it with the video and possibly apply digital lip syncing if you're using that technology. So we see that in 2 parts. There's a part within the Revoiced tool that you can do as a linguist, just very much sort of synchronizing with the video. And by default, the target lines are auto-synced to the start of where the source lines started. And then ultimately, you end up outside of the synthetic voice tool in a professional video tool where you're mixing the different tracks together for the final audio quality. So, key takeaways to summarize what I've gone through is that video content is already pervasive and growing continuously, and as I said, is a preferred modality for people to receive content and remember content better. New technologies like AI dubbing and synthetic voices and lip syncing are opening up new opportunities for LSPs, and going back to the title of my presentation, Voicing the Unvoiced, this is content that would never have traditionally been voiced or dubbed because the cost and time of a professional studio, professional actors, is being used for movies and TV shows and Netflix and high-quality productions. Traditionally, corporate content would not have been dubbed into many languages in the audio track. You might use automatic subtitling in some cases. That has been the default. But tools like this are opening up the possibility to have high-quality voices dubbing video content that would not have been dubbed before. Which is also relevant to the important point that, I mean, many of you will know there have been actors' strikes and there have been concerns among actors about the advent of AI and how it impacts their jobs. But we're very much making the distinction that that high-quality voice acting is still very much in place and will be there into the future. And what tools like this are doing are opening up new possibilities for new types of content to be dubbed that traditionally would not have been dubbed. So that's where we talk about voicing the unvoiced. So we believe that operating these new AI tools for synthetic voices like Revoice-It are within reach of LSPs, within, with existing roles or with some additional training of people that are already there who are willing to adopt new skills and develop new capabilities, and that audio-video service will be a growth area and can be an option for LSPs to expand their services where it makes strategic sense. Thank you.